Have you ever noticed that those who drain the very lifestyles out of you are regularly the same ones you tried hardest to treat with kindness? They do not storm into the room shouting. They do not throw insults directly for your face. Instead, they paintings like shadows, quiet, deliberate, and calculated. They twist your phrases, they warp the truth, they smirk when you stumble, and that they vanish whilst you need the most. In the beginning, it does not appear to be an attack. It looks as if forget about, a delayed reply, a forgotten promise, a half smile whilst you fall short. However, under that diffused outdoors lies their real weapon, doubt. They plant it like a seed interior your mind, and shortly you begin thinking yourself. And while you eventually attain a breaking factor, whilst you can't take it anymore and you snap, they tilt their head, have a look at you frivolously, and by some means you are the only who appears irrational. You're the hassle, it would not count who they are, a colleague, a family member, and vintage buddy, or even someone you as soon as idea you loved. The end result is constantly the same. You walk far away from every come across feeling tired, responsible, and surprisingly liable for keeping peace. In any case, isn't always that what you have been taught? Be type, be patient, be the bigger character. However, Niccolo Machiavelli could by no means suggest you to play the function of the endlessly information saint. He might ask you one bloodless query. Are you being kind, or are you sincerely allowing yourself to be eroded piece through piece by way of a person who feeds off your compliance? Here's the brutal truth in a world complete of manipulators. Kindness without approach isn't distinctive feature. It's self-destruction, and there is one truth you need to carve into your thoughts. You can't restore someone who has no aim of converting. You can't heal a person who prospers on maintaining you broken. The simplest actual flow, the handiest course to reclaiming your power, is to deny them access in your mind. That begins with unlearning nearly the whole lot you had been taught about being exact. You spot, poisonous human beings don't just need to hurt you. This is too simple. They need to examine you at the same time as you harm. They want to study the way you reply, how your feelings spill out, how predictable you end up. They don't want common sense. They do not crave fairness. They stay off the emotional output you provide. And the more constant and predictable you're, the extra manage they benefit. They understand you may reply. They understand you will explain. They realize you cannot stand being misunderstood. And that is precisely why they push your buttons, because they do not want decision. They need reaction. Every time you are saying, "This is no longer what I intended." Whenever you write out lengthy messages clarifying your position, whenever you forgive them, hoping this time they'll ultimately trade, you step immediately into their entice. They act angry, and also you soften. They blame you and you apologize. They go silent and you spiral with tension. They rage and you calm them down. Every motion, every emotional twitch, they gather it like records. And the more they acquire, the sharper their manipulation becomes. In case you do not seize control of your feelings, someone else will capture them for you. And when they manage your emotions, they manipulate you. You may tell yourself, "I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to make things worse. I don't need to be harsh." But what you're surely doing isn't always preserving peace. It's delaying a struggle. This is happening internal you. At the same time as you wait for them to alternate, they're evolving, not into better humans, however, into higher manipulators, refining the artwork of subtle damage. You think you are doing the right factor with the aid of staying smooth, patient, no, how? But in reality, you are just doing what's anticipated of you. And when you do what predicted, you're without difficulty controlled. Machiavelli wrote that the most successful rulers were no longer the most virtuous, but folks that understood human behavior and learned to manipulate it from shadows. Poisonous humans recognize this instinctively. They do not need your loyalty. They need your hesitation. And their last victory is convincing you that your response is your responsibility, which you have to provide an explanation for, which you need to reply, which you ought to soothe them. But here's the fact: you don't owe them a single word. You do not ought to respond. You do not ought to make clear. You do not have to take in their typhoon just to keep things calm. What they fear most is in your anger. It's your refusal to play. It's your silence. Due to the fact silence is the first sign that you've seen their blueprint, and also you prevent following it. Reaction is weakness. Aim is electricity, and silence, when used with strategy, will become domination. Boundaries, consequently, are not emotional pleas. They may be not extra requests. They're now not about convincing a person to treat you higher. Boundaries are a weapon, a method. Poisonous human beings do not go your obstacles due to the fact they do not understand them. They pass them due to the fact they recognize you may not enforce them. They take a look at, they prod, they wait, and on every occasion you balk, provide an explanation for, or melt, you enhance their manage. From formative years, many of us had been taught that announcing no is rude, that placing limits is selfish, that turning a person away makes you unkind. That manner of thinking changed into now not designed to make you more potent. It become designed to make you easy prey. You have been raised and gnawed to adapt, to absorb soreness, to hold weights that were not yours. All inside the call of being an awesome individual. But the harsh reality is this: precise human beings get used. Strategic humans get reputable. So how do you start reclaiming your control? It begins with brutal readability. Ask yourself, who drains me, who ignores my time, my limits, my energy, who respects me most effective when it advantages them. When you become aware of those people, you should stop seeking permission to guard yourself. You set boundaries without guilt, without negotiation, without emotional leakage. You let your no be clean, sharp, final. You allow your distance be silent but immovable. You let your moves speak in which your words failed. You inform the needy friend, I am now not to be had at your convenience anymore. You tell the disturbing coworker, I do not reply to messages after hours. You inform the family member who thrives on drama, I might not interact with negativity. And you then forestall. No long clarification, no frightened smile, no apology wrapped round your words. Because here's what poisonous people fear most: the person that now not performs their game. They need loopholes, debates, back and forths. They need the softness for your tone, the guilt on your eyes, the weak spot to your over-explaining. Take that away and that they lose leverage. No is not the start of a dialogue, it is the quit of one. If a person gets disappointed about your boundary, it really is no longer a purpose to rethink. This is affirmation, it became vital. And yes, they may accuse you of being bloodless. They will say you've got changed. They will call you egocentric, right, which means your boundary worked. Due to the fact, here's the reality: those who benefited from your loss of obstacles will by no means cheer when you finally grow a spine. And that's satisfactory because your role in lifestyles is no longer to make others comfortable. It's to defend your peace. That peace, your time, your power, your emotional space. It is your territory. Like any country, it have to be guarded with vigilance and defended with silence. The instant you prevent explaining yourself, you prevent bleeding electricity. A boundary is not a fence. It isn't always protection. It is a blade, and the sharper the blade, the less frequently you have to swing it. However, don't forget this: poisonous humans do not want to shout at you to break you. They don't need to insult you without delay. They recognize precisely where your cracks are, and that they press just enough to hold you uneasy. They do not fight overtly. They play chess in the dark. Diffused, affected person, particular. They weaponize the small matters. The back-handed praise. Wow, you finally were given something proper. The guilt ride. I bet I'll go through by myself because you're too busy. The silent treatment. hours or days of silence until you experience worthless. The blame shift? I wouldn't have executed this in case you hadn't provoked me, or the triangulation, turning others in opposition to you quietly at the same time as pretending they are neutral. None of that is random. None of it's miles unintentional. This is mental struggle, and the battlefield is your anxious system. You start doubting yourself. You overanalyze each word you talk. You express regret while you did nothing wrong. You start feeling like perhaps you're the loopy one. That is programming, emotional programming, and they are masters of it. But here's the key. They can only keep running the program if you preserve reacting the identical way. Whenever you shield yourself, justify your feelings, or beg to be understood, you feed their system. They don't want decision. They need you stuck inside the loop. They win whilst you lose emotional manage. They lose when you continue to be calm and in command. So, how do you wreck the cycle? 3 easy steps. First, neutralize their bait. After they prod, once they throw the diffused insult, when they guilt experience you, reply with bloodless neutrality, a flat, unshakable tone. It is your opinion, I see. Noted, short, simple, undramatic. They cannot improve what refuses to react. Second, delay your responses. Toxic humans want immediacy. They want emotion. Now, if they initiate you with the aid of textual content or electronic mail, withstand the urge to answer right away. Time is your weapon. Permit their urgency die in silence. 33. Exit the communication. If the air thickens with manipulation, if the tension rises, walk away. No overall performance, no storming out, no dramatic speech. Simply lightly, kingdom, I'm no longer to be had for this verbal exchange. Then go away. No apology, no guilt, no searching lower back. That one act promises extra power than hours of arguing due to the fact now they're left by myself with their processes. No gasoline, no response, no supply. And when you continuously refuse to play, they, in the end, prevent inviting you to the sport. However, make no mistake, they'll escalate first. While you go impartial, they'll press tougher. While you stop reacting, they may initiate deeper. While you shrink back, they may throw guilt, tears, rage, pity, something to tug you lower back. Not because they care, however, because they're losing manipulate. And right here's in which you need to preserve the line. They cannot deal with someone who refuses to absorb their chaos. They disintegrate in the face of psychological stillness. So live still, stay unreadable. Live untouchable. Due to the fact once they recognize you've changed your pattern, they face the one issue they fear maximum, the fact they not have control. Consider it this manner. Each toxic man or woman you've got ever treated is gambling a game. However, not like you, they aren't gambling for equity, love, or information. They're playing for control, and the only manner to win a recreation of control is to make certain the opposite player would not even recognize they may be gambling. It is why you never noticed the trap at the beginning. You concept they cared, you notion they had been struggling, you notion they simply wanted a touch extra staying power, a little extra compassion, a bit extra of some time. However, they were not suffering. They have been studying. They were measuring how a great deal you give earlier than you broke. They watched how speedy you forgave. They referred to how fast you replied their calls. They saw how you defined yourself in lengthy paragraphs, determined to be understood. They memorized your triggers, your weaknesses, your patterns, and after they knew your script, they never had to improvise again. You have become predictable, and predictability is the death of freedom. Machiavelli warned that the only who can expect you owns you due to the fact once they understand your movements, they could plan 3 steps ahead. That is why manipulators seem almost psychic. They know precisely what you'll do because you've skilled them with the aid of doing it over and over. They understand if they pout, you may comfort them. In the event that they rage, you'll make an apology. If they move silent, you will chase. If they accuse, you may give an explanation for. Do you spot the pattern? You're not reacting, you are performing, appearing on command like a puppet, and the cruelest element, the more you attempt to fix things with them, the deeper you bury yourself of their control, because trying to fix what was never broken is the last trap. Not anything is damaged on their give up. They need you within the loop. They need you tired, exhausted, doubting, apologizing. They need you tangled in their web, now not because they love you, but due to the fact your chaos feeds them. You cannot remedy someone who's hooked on your pain. So, what is the way out? Cold method, now not emotion, no longer wish. Method. The first step is to prevent being predictable. You should smash your pattern. If you typically provide an explanation for, prevent explaining. If you normally chase after silence, prevent chasing. If you typically apologize first, don't. The strength isn't in what you do, it is in what you now not supply. Silence isn't always just a lack of phrases. It is an act of refusal to play, and the moment you prevent playing, you force them into discomfort. Consider it. Manipulators thrive on rhythm. They push, you pull. They accuse, you guard. They depart, you chase. That rhythm is their comfort sector. Damage it, and they lose their stability. However, breaking the rhythm requires one thing most of the people worry: detachment. Detachment manner, you no longer see them as a person you ought to repair, please, or win over. Detachment method, seeing them for what they're, a strategist feeding off your compliance. And whilst you detach, you chop the center that fuels their control. This does not suggest you prevent caring about humanity. It would not imply you emerge as cruel. It method you subsequently apprehend that a few humans do now not deserve get entry to your strength, regardless of who they're. Because right here's the truth. No longer everybody you lose is a loss. Every so often dropping someone is a primary step towards reclaiming yourself. However, manipulators will by no means will let you move peacefully. Oh no, the instant they feel your detachment, they will switch procedures. They may play the victim. They will tell you are heartless. They'll cry, rage, beg, accuse. They'll even promise to change. They'll say all of the proper words. I see what I've performed. I'll do better. Simply supply me one extra hazard. And if you're no longer careful, the one's words will melt your clear up. You'll believe them. You'll step back into the cycle, and within weeks, maybe days, they will be returned to their antique video games. Right here's the brutal reality. When someone shows you who they're time and again, believe them. Machiavelli taught that guarantees are the cheapest foreign money in strength. Human beings promise once they worry dropping their gain. They do not promise to change. They promise to preserve you compliant. So don't pay attention to words. Watch actions. And if the actions stay the same, the phrases are not anything but smoke. This is why your silence, your distance, your unshakable detachment, these aren't cruelty. They are readability. Consider it like a state. If an enemy continues raiding your partitions, stealing your meals, poisoning your water, would you invite them in for dinner? Would you are saying, perhaps this time they might not betray me? Of path no longer. You would improve your walls. You would close the gates. You'll toughen your defenses. Your obstacles are your gates. Your silence is your fortress. Your detachment is your navy. The moment you internalize this, the whole thing changes. Due to the fact poisonous people simplest win when they persuade you that defending yourself makes you merciless. They need you to feel guilty for pronouncing no. They want you to think barriers are egocentric. They want you to look detachment as betrayal, but what they call betrayal is virtually survival. Right here's any other truth. You don't owe all and sundry unlimited access to you. Not your pals, now not your circle of relatives, not your companion, now not your co-workers, no one. Its slow and strength are your maximum valuable currencies, and as soon as spent, they by no means go back. If someone is constantly draining them, you're financing your own destruction. Prevent financing your personal destruction. Some human beings will by no means clap when you set obstacles. They may boo. They will scream. They may call you cold, selfish, conceited. Allow them to, because individuals who truly respect you'll by no means be angry with the aid of your limits. Best people who benefited out of your loss of them will protest. That's the test. Who gets angry while you say no? It truly is the individual that changed into by no means with you. They have been along with your compliance. The art of electricity isn't always about being cherished by using absolutely everyone. It's about being respected by means of the proper ones, and respect starts with self-respect. Machiavelli stated it in reality. It's miles higher to be feared than cherished, if you cannot be both. However, in non-public lifestyles, this doesn't mean inspiring terror. It way inspiring appreciate. It manner your no includes wait. It means your silence cannot be unnoticed. It method your detachment is unshakable. And as soon as humans realize you cannot be manipulated, something fascinating happens. The poisonous ones fall away and the wholesome ones draw closer. Why? Because healthy people love barriers. Obstacles cause them to experience safe. Obstacles show them wherein they stand. Barriers show you've got respect for yourself and for them. Dangerous people, on the other hand, disintegrate in the presence of boundaries. They rage, they guilt ride, they smear, they leave and let them. Their go out is not your loss, it's your freedom, but let's not romanticize it. Walking away isn't smooth. Detachment isn't always painless. Before everything, silence feels like suffocation. You want to give an explanation for. You need to chase. You want to smooth things over. It really is your old programming screaming. However, you ought to withstand. Due to the fact the pain you experience in attachment isn't always the ache of loss. It's the pain of detox. You are cleansing from a cycle of manipulation, and like any detox, it feels unbearable before everything. However, with time, readability replaces chaos. Stillness replaces storms. Freedom replaces worry. This is the moment you comprehend you never wished their approval. You by no means needed their validation. You simplest wanted your very own permission to defend yourself. And when you provide yourself that permission, you emerge as untouchable. They can call you names. They are able to twist the story. They could paint you because the villain. However, it doesn't depend because you not play the game. And when you not play, they are able to not win. Your silence is louder than their accusations. Your distance is more potent than their manipulation. Your detachment is deadlier than their rage. This is not approximately revenge. Revenge keeps you tied to them. That is approximately elevation, about growing to date above their chaos, that they are able to no longer reach you. And while you upward push, something happens in order to terrify them. You prevent reacting. However, you furthermore prevent being concerned. Sincerely, deeply stop worrying. That is a final blow due to the fact they can handle your anger, your tears, your begging, your pleading. They can feed off the ones forever. However, your indifference, your bloodless, commonplace indifference, this is death to them. To forestall worrying isn't always weak point. It's Miles' energy in its purest form. Because caring approximately the wrong human beings is the chain that binds you to distress. Breaking that chain is the maximum Machiavellian pass you can make. And here's the final truth of this element. While you prevent care about people who don't take care of you, you don't simply shield yourself. You free yourself. You reclaim the hours, the energy, the intellectual area they once owned. You rediscover who you have been earlier than they tired you. And in that silence, in that detachment, you discover something rare. Peace, no longer the fake peace you try and hold through soaking up their chaos. No longer the fragile peace that trusted retaining them happy, but real peace. The type that comes while the noise dies down and the hurricane passes, not because they exchange, however, due to the fact you stop letting them in. It truly is no longer cruelty. It is not selfishness. This is survival. This is energy. That is the most effective way to win against folks that have been by no means playing truthful. And after you recognize this, after you honestly stay it, you may never worry dropping human beings again due to the fact you'll understand the reality. The simplest man or woman you may ever lose who absolutely topics is yourself. In no way lose yourself again. Here's the paradox. The folks who tired you, broke you, and tried to govern you, the ones very people unknowingly gave you a gift. No longer a pleasant one, no longer a tender one, however a brutal, vital gift, the awakening. Due to the fact as soon as you have been burned by way of manipulation, you expand an awareness the majority in no way attain. You start to see patterns in others, you pay attention the hidden reasons in their words, you experience the shift in power whilst a person is mendacity, whilst someone is flattering, while someone is planting guilt. You walk through fireplace and now you may sense smoke earlier than the flames seem. It really is why the maximum risky individual in any room isn't always the manipulator. It is the one who has survived a manipulator and discovered, because now you don't simply stay with emotion, you stay with strategy. You have visible the sport from the inner and each pass. And here's the splendor. While you mass a detachment, silent and self-respect, you don't turn out to be bloodless, you end up clean, you don't stop loving, you simply forestall bleeding for individuals who do not deserve it. Love without boundaries isn't love, it is self-destruction. Compassion without limb, it isn't compassion, it is servitude. Forgiveness without trade isn't forgiveness, it is give up. You aren't right here to be tired, for use, to be someone's limitless supply of validation. You are here to grow, to build, to stand, to protect the only existence you have been given, and that means one issue. Your peace is non-negotiable. Think about peace like a crown. If you wear it loosely, all and sundry can seize it out of your head. But if you defend like a king, in case you shield it like a fortress, then peace becomes your throne. And from that throne, you rule your very own existence. That is why Machiavelli's information nevertheless cuts through centuries. He never sugarcoated human nature.